Hi, this is Greg. Look for my book, The Agile Brand, on Amazon or on my website at theagile.world. Welcome back to the Agile World. This is Greg Kihlstrom. Over the last few episodes, I've been talking about what I refer to as the Agile Brand Manifesto. When I wrote my book, The Agile Brand, I based this part off of the Agile Manifesto, which a bunch of software developers created in about 2001 that really launched the Agile movement. And because of that movement, we have all sorts of things like Agile marketing, Agile HR, Agile business, all of those. So we have a lot. We owe them a lot, to be honest. So I kind of did my own version of that in my book and came up with 4 values that Agile brands have. Went over the first 2 already. The first being valuing long-term customers over short-term sales. The second one, which I talked about in the last episode, was valuing dialogue with customers over broadcasting one-way marketing messaging, and how that mix between advertising and traditional marketing, which will always play a role and always have some type of value, really needs to be balanced with giving customers not only the ability to dialogue directly with a brand, but giving them the vocabulary and the tools to spread your message for you. In this episode, I'm going to talk about how Agile brands need to value staying true to their own values while overdoing whatever they can to generate profits. In this episode, I'm going to talk about how Agile brands need to value staying true to their own values over doing whatever they can to generate profits. And in the next episode, I'll talk about the fourth item, which is valuing continual improvement over maintaining the status quo. So let's talk about staying true to values. It's safe to say that any for-profit company will certainly needs to generate profits. There's no question about that, and that will never change. Certainly, when shareholders are involved, that becomes increasingly important. So we're not talking about all of a sudden throwing out the idea of needing to generate money and make money and so on and so forth. So I think what we're talking about here is companies making decisions that are not solely based on generating profits. And I think that's an important distinction. Certainly, nonprofits might be in a different category. Even private companies certainly can often take very controversial stances if they want. But those public companies driven by shareholders, they still have an opportunity to do this. So I think I mentioned the Nike example, the Colin Kaepernick campaign a few episodes ago. Certainly, Nike didn't go into that without doing their homework. No question about it. They did research. They calculated, as with any decision that a large multi-billion-dollar company makes, there was a risk analysis done. They have smart people, I'm sure, that made those decisions and made those calculations. But at the end of the day, they didn't have to do it. They could have just said, no, we don't want to do this. But they ended up doing it. And stood by it. And, there was some controversy with some people, but they ended up standing by it. I thought it was a genuine campaign that actually reflected their values. And, sure enough, the numbers that I've heard out of that are positive. They got positive value out of that. I think Starbucks fairly recently shut down their stores because of some racial incidents. They shut down their stores to do education and training. I mean, think about how many stores Starbucks has and what that actually costs that company to do that, to actually shut down their operations in order to do it. The cynical part of me could say, that's kind of a publicity stunt. And sure, they certainly made it public, and they couldn't help but make it public by shutting down during the day because people probably were wanting to buy coffee from them during those hours. But they didn't have to do it. They could have addressed it with an email. They could have done all sorts of other things, but they decided to do it. They decided to stay true to something that they've made clear over time is something that they want to be part of their values. I will say in the case of Starbucks, it hasn't always been as genuine. I mentioned another campaign several years ago that only lasted about a week, where they wrote questions about race on cups. The baristas did this, and it really didn't work over well because it wasn't really an authentic conversation. But it's clear that Starbucks has been trying to do that. And so when they did it this most recent time, it felt a little more authentic, and it seems to be something that they're embracing. And again, they did it despite the cost, the lost business, all of those types of things. So I think when a company is able to do that, when they're able to make decisions that are not solely financial, when they're able to make decisions that are genuine, that are authentic, that are based on true values, they are, not only are they living up to what I consider a true Agile brand, but they're going to have more loyal customers, and that will generate into longer term, more loyal customers, which are more valuable. It will end up generating money, money and profits, which sometimes thinking short term, and losing kind of the big picture doesn't give you that. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about how Agile brands need to value continual improvement over maintaining the status quo. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week. If you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, please rate the show on iTunes or contact me through my website at theagile.world. You can find my books, The Agile Brand and The Agile Web, on Amazon and on my website at theagile.world.